Hi everyone, Jim here. Welcome to my channel. Well, June is almost over. It's June 29th today, and June is the month that we all know is for reading westerns. June on the Range. June on the Range was created by Michael K. Vaughan, and still, and I say this I think every video, but I think June on the Range is probably my favorite reading event on BookTube, and it is probably, in my opinion, it is the best reading event on BookTube. But here we are at the end of June, and I'm going to be sad to see it go, but happily enough, come July, we have the Private Eye July reading event, which I'm excited about. This is the first year for that, and I think there's been good buzz about that, so I'm looking forward to that. But June on the Range, I'm going to do a wrap-up of what I read and what I watched and what I did for June on the Range. And I hope you guys got a lot of good reading in, a lot of westerns, a lot of western movies that you watched, and TV series. But let's get into it. I actually started in May. I got a little bit of a head start on reading for June on the Range, and I had started reading The Long Ride Home by Louis L'Amour. This is a series of short stories, and I told myself when I initially knew June on the Range was coming up and I did the introduction, I wasn't going to do Louis L'Amour, but honestly, Louis L'Amour, I can't stay away from his books. He's a great writer, and I enjoy him so much. So this was just a nice little, appetizer for going into June on the Range, and they're just short stories, some better than others, none that you'd know. I mean, the titles are pretty basic, and he doesn't really have a lot of famous short stories, but they're just fun to read and very satisfying. So that's The Long Ride Home by Louis L'Amour. And the next one I read, and I did a video on this one, and this is The Seven Men at Mimbra Springs by Will Henry. And the more I think about this, the more I think that it belongs, up there with books like True Grit and The Outlaw Josie Wales. I think the only thing keeping this book from that kind of level of fiction, that it's not as well regarded, is because the characters in this aren't as well drawn as the character of, like, Rooster Cogburn, for instance. But the book itself, the story itself, is really, really good, and I enjoyed it immensely. And when I read it, my respect and estimate of Will Henry's writing just went up a few levels. A really good book. I'm going to be looking for more of his books as I go to the bookstores. He wrote under the name Clay Fisher as well as Will Henry, and his real name was William Henry Allen was his real name. But such a good book, and well recommended if you can find that. There's many copies out there, different covers, but I really enjoyed that. The next one I read for June on the Range was another fairly famous Western writer, Wayne D. Overholser, and this is Tough Hand. And I'm not going to get into synopses regarding the books. I just, I'm going to share with you what I read and what I thought of them. Again, it's hard to go wrong with Westerns. I will get to one in a bit, but, most of these are well-established Western writers who really know what they're doing and can tell a good story. And Tough Hand by Wayne D. Overholser was one of them, and I really enjoyed that. Now, the next one, which probably was the one I enjoyed most of all, with the exception of the Will Henry book, was Buchanan's Gun by Jonas Ward. Now, this is part of a series. There's quite a few Buchanan books out there. Anyway, Buchanan's Gun by Jonas Ward, any of the Buchanan books are really good, worth checking out. So yeah, that's another one. Now, this next book, this is where I ran into a problem. This is Edge number 2, $10,000 American. Now, I did a video on this, and I was afraid I came across a little too harsh on it, because, you know, for the most part, I like stories like this. You expect brutality and violence in your books. This one just stepped over the edge a little bit, kind of took it into a gender-based violence, which was a little uncomfortable for me. And you expect that from the bad guys, but this was done by the protagonist in the novel. So that's, I'm not going to start going on a rant about it again. But if it wasn't for that, the Edge novels are actually pretty good. I read 2 before this, and I do enjoy them. I do enjoy that anti-hero type of story, that Clint Eastwood made popular in his spaghetti western movies, and that's what these Edge novels are trying to emulate, which I'm all for. So, and I think it pretty much, he toned it down after this book. Maybe he got a few complaints about how brutal it was towards women, and maybe he toned it down in those later ones. I hope so, because I've got a lot of them on my shelf. But anyway, that's Edge number 2, and you can watch my video. I'll try to maybe link it somewhere, and you can watch my thoughts on that one. And to kind of cleanse my palate after Edge, I read another Louis L'Amour, Bordon Chantry. Now, the Bordon Chantry, he's a marshal in a town, deputy marshal. I think he was a marshal. He's a marshal. And he's fairly new to the job. He kind of took it over as a favor from a friend of his who used to be marshal in this town. And the thing that I like about Louis L'Amour's characters is they're not necessarily perfect. He has doubts about whether he can do the job. He's human. And but that being said, he wants to do a good job. He wants to bring the bad guys to justice, no matter what it takes. And I always enjoy the Louis L'Amour novels, and this one was read like a mystery. This one was basically a mystery where Bordon Chantry, there was a murder. He picked up clues, and other murders happened, and murders prior to the one that he came in on. So it reads very much like a traditional mystery story, while still retaining the elements of a Louis L'Amour Western and a Louis L'Amour protagonist. And these never leave a bad taste in my mouth, like Edge number 2 did. They're just very satisfying to read. And the Louis L'Amour characters are always about building community and about trusting your fellow man to do the right thing. But if they don't do the right thing, there's a rich and vengeful justice to be done at the hand of the protagonist. So it's not like he's a shrinking violet or anything, but he likes to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I think that's a good thing, and I think that's what I like about Westerns. So that was very enjoyable and highly recommended. Great book. And then I followed it up with another Louis L'Amour Western because I just felt like reading another Louis L'Amour Western. And this is a Kilkenny novel, Lance Kilkenny, which was a series of books. He did a few books with the character Lance Kilkenny. And people criticize Louis L'Amour a lot about his formulaic writing, and that there was a lot of coincidence in his stories. But he gave the people what they wanted. And for the longest time, like I'd read Westerns before, but in my formative years and for many years after, the only Westerns I read were Louis L'Amour. So you kind of get used to the cadence and the rhythm of his writing, and certain formulaic tendencies that he has. So you kind of get used to that, and you look forward to it as you're reading these books. So when you actually read another writer that's not Louis L'Amour, it's almost jarring because they don't have the same rhythm or the same kind of tropes that Louis L'Amour used in his writing. So it's very interesting for me to read other writers that aren't Louis L'Amour and to see their different styles and how they deal with things much differently than Louis L'Amour. But that being said, I love Louis L'Amour's books, and I will always read them and reread them. And as I said, when there's that Edge book that I didn't like so much, I'm going to come back to Louis L'Amour as kind of a palate cleanser and just a comfort read, if you prefer. That's what Louis L'Amour is to me. So yeah, great books. That's recommended. And then I read this book of short story, The Best of the West, and this is The Outlaws, and I don't know what number this is in this series. They don't really number them, but I think it was one of the earlier ones. But these are just well-picked, well-chosen short stories by Bill Pronzini and Martin H. Greenberg. And then I've got another anthology, The Best of the West, with stories that were adapted into movies. So these are very highly recommended if you can find them. I'd like to find more. So that was very enjoyable to me. And I had to pick up one of the Ace double westerns and read them. I read this one, The Bad Shooters, and I'm currently reading the Flip Story Massacre Basin by Frank Wynn. But this one by Clement Hardin, again, going back to what I was just saying about, things being a little jarring when it's not Louis L'Amour, because that's what you're used to. This, it took a while to get into this, but I really enjoyed it. And the end of the story was almost had this post-apocalyptic feel that you'd get in a Clint Eastwood nihilistic Western. And it was really good. I like Clement Hardin as a writer, but I ran into the same problem, I think with Steve Donnie, who was reading these, and the pages started falling out. So I was reading this, and it started to lose pages. They started to come out. So I've been kind of I wanted to finish the story, so I had to be very ginger with it, and I wanted to read this one as well. So I'm trying to be very careful and make sure I get through the stories before the book falls apart on me. But that was some great reading for June on the Range, and I enjoyed it so much. Now, for the movies I watched, I didn't watch as many movies as I would have liked. I watched a Randolph Scott movie called 7 Men from Now, starring Randolph Scott, Gail Russell, and Lee Marvin. And this was this was the first movie that Bud Bodeker directed with Randolph Scott being his main character. They did a few movies together, a few westerns together. This was the first one that they did together. Really good movie. I was frankly kind of surprised. I didn't expect too much from it, but the performances all around were just fantastic. Randolph Scott is like a perfect Western hero. He's got the confidence, but he's not cocky. He instills, that he's a man who's been around and he knows what he's doing. And he's right up there with one of the best, as one of the best Western actors in movies, and that's a really good movie. So if you're looking for a good Western, good traditional Western, look for that one. Gail Russell is probably one of my favorite actresses from back in the day. She's just a beautiful woman, and she does such a great job. She's a great actress, and I don't think she really did a lot. Unfortunately, she did The Angel and the Bad Man with John Wayne, which I loved, and this movie and some others that I really like. So, take a look for that one. The next one that I watched was The Broken Arrow with James Stewart. I think I expected a little too much from this one. I had high expectations. I was a little disappointed. It dealt with him trying to make peace with native Indians of the time, and there was a love story with him and a young Indian maiden, but she was very, very young for him. And that kind of threw me off. Like Jimmy Stewart never struck me as a romantic lead, Jimmy Stewart. Like I like him in Westerns. He's got a nice kind of everyman feel about him when he does Westerns, but he doesn't come across as a real tough guy, and he doesn't come across to me as a real romantic lead. So that story with this young Indian maiden falling in love with him just didn't read true to me. unfortunately, and kind of threw me off a little bit for the movie. But other than that, it was a pretty good Western, not bad. So those were the two. Oh, actually, no, I watched another movie that Mark suggested for me, Stars in My Crown with Joel McCrea, which I'm not sure if you could really call it a Western. It had more of kind of a Little House on the Prairie vibe, but it was good, and I actually enjoyed it. It was an old black and white Western. It had a young Dean Stockwell as a kid actor, so it was interesting. And I watched some TV shows, Bonanza, a couple episodes of Bonanza. I can't remember what episodes they were. I should have written them down. And a couple episodes of Have Gun Will Travel, which is just a great show. So yeah, those are what I read. That's what I read, and those are the movies that I watched. I didn't get around to reading the Jonah Hex comics that I wanted to read, but you know what? For me, I'm still going to keep reading Westerns, even though June is done. It's not like something I just contain within the month of June. It's something that I'm always reading and always, enjoying. So I'll probably get to the Jonah Hex comics pretty soon, maybe throughout July, but July is going to be a busy month too, so I'm not too sure about that. While I have you here, I'm going to share with you a few books that I recently acquired. I was watching one of Roy's videos, one of his June on the Range videos, and he brought out this book, this Encyclopedia of Frontier and Western Fiction by John Tuska and Vicky Pekarsky. And this is the type of book that I've always wanted. I didn't realize that this one was even a thing until I saw it on Roy's channel. So like minutes after I saw it on his channel, I ordered it from Thrift Books, and this is a great book. But I noticed there's a few entries that are missing from here. One of the first Western authors I read, Tom West, The Lost Loot of Kitty Cat Ranch and The Phantom Pistolier, he's not represented in here at all, not even under his real name, which was Fred East. So I think this is probably, if Tom West is missing, I'm sure there's other writers missing from here, but still, it's a library edition, unfortunately, but still, it's in really good shape. But yeah, it's nice to have, and I had to have it. It's just a great reference book. It's got all kinds of authors in here that I hadn't heard of, so it's just nice to peruse and look through this and refer to when I find a book, by an author I don't know, and I can look in here and hopefully find them. I don't know how many are missing, but this was written in early 80s, I think. So this was written in 1983, so it's good right up till 1983. So anyway, that was fun. I'm really glad I got that one. And I just picked these up today. They're Westerns, as a matter of fact. I got a couple of long arms, which are always nice to find. If I can find them in good shape. This is Long Arm and the Cheyenne Kid, and that is number 164. And I've got Long Arm and the Bounty of Blood, and this is number 181. And then I have this lovely book called The Phantom Bandit, and these are short stories by Frank Bonham, and this is edited by Bill Pronzini. I trust Bill Pronzini to know what he's doing when it comes to Western stories. He edits a lot of these anthologies, and Frank Bonham was a pulp writer from back in the day. His stories appeared in Dime Detective and Dime Western and 44 Western. But then he started. Then he wrote stories for the Slicks. Like a lot of these writers tried to get into the Slick. That was a higher level up from the pulp magazines, and a lot of writers couldn't make that transition. But Frank Bonham was one who did make that transition. So I'm looking forward to reading these short stories. And that's Frank Bonham. And not a Western, but I always pick these Michael Moorcock copies up when I can. This is The Oak and the Ram. This is part 5 in the Book of Quorum stories, and that's lovely. And I've got a lot of other books that I haven't shown you yet, and I meant to do a book haul and they're really starting to pile up. So I might have to do another book called Video separately and just show you a bunch of stuff that I've acquired. So that's it. I wanted to share all that stuff with you. I wanted to do a June on the Range update, and I wanted to thank Michael again for allowing me to be a co-host. I had a lot of fun. It's a great month, and yeah, so that's it for now. I hope everybody joins me for Private Eye July coming up in a couple of days, and I haven't really got anything prepared for it yet, but I will by then. So until next time, I will talk to you soon. Take care and keep reading.